Hello friends, do you know about the POSH Act? If not, you're not alone. Despite its importance, many people are unaware of what it is and what it does. In a world where the fight for equality and justice is more prevalent than ever, the POSH Act stands as a beacon of hope. Short for Prevention of Sexual Harassment, this act is a significant piece of legislation in India dedicated to creating safer professional spaces for everyone. But what led to the inception of such act? Why was there a need for a law specifically addressing sexual harassment at the workplace? The story behind the POSH Act is as compelling as its mission. Born out of necessity, this act has its roots in a series of events that sparked a nationwide conversation about workplace safety. So, let's dive into the history of the POSH Act to understand why it is so important. Because after all, understanding our past is the key to shaping a better future. The POSH Act didn't just come into existence overnight, it was born out of necessity and a need for change. As we delve deeper into the roots of this significant legislation, we must travel back in time to the year 1997. It was then that the Supreme Court of India issued the Vishaka Guidelines, a precursor to the POSH Act. The Vishaka Guidelines emerged in response to a horrifying event, a brutal gang rape of a social worker in Rajasthan. This incident triggered a nationwide outcry, leading to the filing of a public interest litigation by Vishaka, a non-governmental organization demanding safer work environments for women. The Supreme Court, recognizing the gravity of the situation, issued guidelines to protect women from sexual harassment at the workplace. These guidelines, known as the Vishaka Guidelines, laid the groundwork for the eventual POSH Act. The Vishaka Guidelines were groundbreaking. They recognized for the first time that sexual harassment is a violation of the fundamental rights of a woman to equality under Articles 14 and 15 of the Constitution of India, and her right to life and to live with dignity under Article 21. They mandated employers to ensure a safe working environment for women and outline procedures for the resolution, settlement, or prosecution of acts of sexual harassment. However, these guidelines were just that, guidelines. They lacked the enforceability of a statute, and implementation was often inconsistent. There was a dire need for a comprehensive law to address the issue of workplace harassment. Enter the Supreme Court once again with a landmark judgment in the year 2013. In a case that came to be known as Mehta Kotwal Lele versus Union of India, the court criticized the slow implementation of the Vishaka Guidelines and demanded a legislative solution. This judgment, coupled with the increasing pressure from women's rights organizations and the public, led to the drafting of the Protection of Women from Sexual Harassment Act, or the POSH Act, later that year. Thus, the seeds for the POSH Act were sown, but it would still take some time for it to become law. The journey from guidelines to legislation was not easy, but it was crucial for the protection of women in the workplace. The tale begins in 1997 when the Supreme Court of India laid down the Vishaka Guidelines, named after the women's rights group that had petitioned the court. These guidelines were a beacon of hope, a pioneering effort to protect women from sexual harassment at work. But they were just that, guidelines, not law. They were a step in the right direction, but not yet the final destination. The journey from these guidelines to the Prevention of Sexual Harassment, POSH Act, was a long and winding road, fraught with challenges. The guidelines were often ignored or poorly enforced, and sexual harassment continued to be a persistent and pervasive issue. Society's response was mixed. While many applauded the initiative, there was also resistance, primarily stemming from ignorance and deeply entrenched patriarchal attitudes. Despite these challenges, the drive for change never waned. Women's rights advocates, non-governmental organizations, and even some forward-thinking corporates kept the momentum going. They lobbied for legislation, conducted awareness campaigns, and tirelessly worked to change attitudes towards sexual harassment. The importance of this transition from guidelines to law cannot be overstated. The guidelines had laid the foundation, but it was the POSH Act that built the structure. With the Act, there was now a clear legal definition of sexual harassment. The Act made it mandatory for employers to take steps to prevent sexual harassment and to provide mechanisms for redressal. It also included provisions for penalties for employers who failed to comply. The POSH Act was a watershed moment, a victory for gender equality and a safer work environment for women. It was a recognition that sexual harassment was not just a personal issue, but a societal one that needed to be addressed. And so, after a long journey filled with hurdles, the POSH Act was finally enacted in 2013. This was a significant milestone, but it was not the end of the road. The journey towards a harassment-free workplace continues, as the implementation and enforcement of the Act remain ongoing challenges. But that, as they say, is a story for another day. Now that we understand the history and significance of the POSH Act, let's summarize the key points. To begin with, the POSH Act, or the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act, is a monumental piece of legislation in India. It was enacted in 2013, following the landmark case of Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan, which laid the foundation for this act. The act aims to provide a safe and respectful work environment for women, free from sexual harassment. The POSH Act is a beacon of hope for women across the nation. It is a comprehensive law that covers all workplaces, irrespective of their size or sector. It provides a broad definition of sexual harassment, acknowledging that harassment can take many forms, including physical, verbal, or even non-verbal. The Act also emphasizes the principle of zero tolerance, making it compulsory for employers to act against any reported or observed instance of sexual harassment. The POSH Act also mandates the creation of an internal complaints committee in every organization with 10 or more employees. This committee is responsible for receiving and addressing complaints of sexual harassment, providing a platform for victims to voice their experiences and seek redressal. Moreover, the Act outlines the duties of employers, making them accountable for preventing and addressing sexual harassment. Employers must provide a safe work environment, conduct regular awareness sessions, and ensure the effective functioning of the complaints committee. Non-compliance with these provisions can result in hefty penalties. Finally, the POSH Act has significantly impacted society by shedding light on a pervasive issue and providing a legal framework to combat it. It has empowered women, fostering a culture of respect and equality in the workplace. However, the effectiveness of the Act ultimately depends on its enforcement and the collective efforts of society to create safer spaces for everyone. Remember, the POSH Act is more than just a law. It's a testament to society's progress in ensuring a safe and respectful workplace for everyone. Thanks for watching, and remember to stay informed and proactive. Before we conclude this informative journey, remember that knowledge is power. If you have any further inquiries or need more details about the POSH Act, don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact Anuradha Sharma, an expert in the field, at anuradhasharma@gmail.com. She has spent years studying and working with the POSH Act and can provide comprehensive answers to your questions. Remember, staying informed and proactive is the first step towards creating a safer and more respectful workplace for everyone. Your understanding and support can make a huge difference. Thank you for being an active participant in this fight against workplace harassment. Stay safe, stay informed, and most importantly, don't be afraid to speak up.